You should have gotten a little warning now
10.3 much.
saying that we're recording. And let's go ahead and start. So everyone, welcome in. I'm Matt Bartels. Many of you have talked to me over email or in Zoom calls and the like, and I'll be your host for tonight's session. Normally, Amanda Menking, our program director, and I kind of share the hosting duties. Amanda is out sick today, so I'll be taking on her parts as well for this. Fortunately, in addition to me, we've got other people here that are going to be helping out as well. You'll be hearing from our student and alumni panel before long. With us are Jacob Burke and Yammer Erton from the previous cohort, the class of 2020, and Joan Williams and Fontaine Wong from the class of 2021, the current student class. So they'll be here today, and we'll talk to them a little later in the presentation to get their insights into how the program runs and what it's like from the student perspective. Today's agenda is pretty straightforward. We're going to start by talking a little bit about the program philosophy and then move into a discussion of the curriculum, how all the pieces come together. We'll talk about career and career development, and then chat with our students and alumni a bit about the student experience. A little bit of time we'll spend on the application process itself, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So that's the plan of attack today. And again, everyone be sure you're muted so we don't get those feedback loops, and we'll see what we've got here. So to start with, we're going to talk a bit about the program, and we like to start broad and then get more narrow as we go along. The MHCID program is a program. It's not an academic department or a school at the University of Washington. And what that means is we're a program that sits between 4 other units at the university. There's the Division of Design in the School of Art, Art History and Design, Computer Science and Engineering, the Information School, and Human-Centered Design and Engineering. All 4 of those academic units have people who study HCI, study human-computer interaction. And together, they saw that overlapping interest. And first, the professors mostly and PhD students got together and formed something at the University of Washington called DUB. DUB stands for Design, Use, Build. And that was a place where people who shared an interest in HCI at the university could get together and share their academic learnings, learn from each other, and talk about their shared areas of interest. From that, eventually they realized there was a need for a program and a value to creating a program. And that's where MHCID began. So DUB was here for probably 7 years before MHCID was founded. And we were founded with the support of these 4 units. And we're an interdisciplinary program that sits at the intersection of all of them. So we sit on top of those other units and really focus on the professional development and working in this field. The way that we put our program together really comes back to some of our central philosophy of what we think makes for a good program in this field. And so I wanted to talk through a few of these different key points of how we organize the way that we approach this field. First, we create thoughtful technology experiences through the application of human-centered design and design thinking. Breaking that down a bit, we are a program that mostly focuses on technology experiences, not exclusively, but mostly technology experiences is where we intersect with the world. The way that we do that is through human-centered design, so putting humans first in the way we think about the problems that technology raise. And the method we use is design thinking. The design thinking method gives us an approach that allows us to move through the product design process, usually in the technology sphere. As mentioned at the outset, we're interdisciplinary and we're collaborative, both in our teaching and in our learning. So we have 1 faculty member and 1 director who sit within our program, and even they have seats within those other sponsoring units. Um, for the program, our instructors come from those 4 sponsoring departments, and we think that makes for a stronger learning experience. You don't get a single lens of one department's view on HCI. Instead, you get to have a variety of perspectives teaching the same subject. So we think it makes for a stronger experience when you can hear a professor from the information school and one from, say, the computer science and engineering department co-teach a course and sometimes disagree with each other about the best approach to the same problem. Likewise, we're interdisciplinary in the students in the program. We will talk about this as we go along probably, and several of you have talked to me about this, but we seek to bring together a cohort that's made up of people from a wide variety of backgrounds. We think that makes for a stronger program, and we think you can learn a lot from each other, probably more over the course of the year than you learn from your instructors because you're spending more time with each other. So we really value pulling people together who bring a wide variety of interdisciplinary training before they come into the program. We think that makes us a stronger program and makes for more interesting learning and projects as we go along. Number 3, we learn, make, critique, reflect, and refine iteratively. Yeah. So this program is one that believes that repeating a process can make you more adept at it as you go along. The way we'll see the curriculum is structured has you running through the design process multiple times over the course of the year. We don't think that you learn best when you're presented something once and you're expected to understand it. Instead, we think that by doing over and over again, reflecting on what you've learned and then refining it again, you'll create stronger outcomes. That goes at the large scale across the entire year, where the studio process is repeated multiple times. It also goes small scale within any individual project. Within a project, you won't rush to find the right solution and implement it. You'll be testing, prototyping, refining, and reflecting over and over again. So that's key to the process that we use during the program. 4th, we engage industry practitioners. We think they bring their own experience and perspective to our design challenges. So we are an academic program at the University of Washington, and we've got great faculty instructors, but we think it's also essential in a program like this to get the perspective of industry on what you're learning and to hear how they react to it. So throughout the program, you'll have many chances to interact with industry. Oftentimes in the seminar courses, guest instructors from industry are brought in to explain how the things you're learning apply to their daily life and their work. Amanda, our director, in her user research class this quarter, has had guest industry lecturers come in multiple times through the class. Likewise, in Capstone, each Capstone team has an industry advisor that they work with on their project. And we bring in folks from industry repeatedly throughout the year. We think that perspective from industry is really important to have. That said, we think it's the intersection of the theoretical that you're learning here along with the practical that combines to make a stronger program. And 5th, we believe that our graduates have an upward career trajectory by being deeply immersed in the why as well as the what. So this really gets to a distinction between graduate programs, I think, and things like boot camps or online courses you might take. The tools of HCI and the tools of design thinking are not the most important part of becoming a great designer or researcher. We think the why and why you're doing what you're doing is essential to becoming a leader in the field. So we stress a lot of time throughout the program, taking the time to think about not just how to do something, but why you're doing it, whether you should do it, what are the implications of doing it. I think Joan and Fontaine might be able to talk a little about Amanda's class where you get quite a bit of critique into methods and the ethics and understanding what's going on behind the scenes, rather than just assuming that we can just make and make and make without ever having that reflection. So the why of design is really an essential portion to, we think, most people coming to a graduate program. Understanding that gives you a stronger foundation for the design and research that you'll undertake. So putting that philosophy all together, we could talk a little bit about the program structure. This first section, I think most of you are likely familiar with already, but we operate on a cohort model. What that means is we bring together a single group of students each year beginning in September, and they proceed through the program in 11 months together. We think that cohort working together, not starting at different times of the year, not working at their own pace, we think that cohort model really promotes better learning and better bonding between the students in the program. So we all start in September and graduate 11 months later in August. The cohort size is 30 to 40 students typically. So small enough that you can really get to know each other and still have room to see some of the variation between the variety of students that make up each cohort. Each cohort has its own style as well. So it's small enough that we often wonder in the background, what's the personality of this year's cohort going to be? Overall, most of your courses are going to be taken with the cohort. So we're going to walk through the curriculum next, and you'll see that about 85% of the courses you'll take over the 11 months you're here are in the core curriculum. That means you'll be with this group of 30 to 40 students for those 85% of your time. Around the edges, that's where electives fill in. So this is not the type of program where you define a track and you kind of create your own master's degree. We've got a curriculum that we believe has proven to work really well. And if you're coming into the program, you're coming in for that curriculum for the most part, and then refining around the edges and in the way you implement in the projects that you work on. So when we look at the curriculum, this is kind of a breakdown of how the core curriculum works quarter by quarter. This is a little bit confusing, but we'll take it piece by piece. The different colors on this chart indicate the different types of courses that you'll take in the core curriculum. There's blue courses are the studio courses. Green courses are the lecture or seminar courses. The gray is dubbed seminar. And then the orange denotes courses related to capstone, which are kind of studio, kind of their own thing. So each of these folds together so that you have 4 quarters that break down where you're in most of the quarters taking a lecture course, dub seminar, and a studio course. And so to break these apart a little bit, at the heart of most quarters is the studio class that you'll take. You have 5 studio classes through the course of the curriculum. In the week before the fall quarter formally begins, we have an immersion studio, which is a 1-week-long sprint that gives everyone a chance to get to know each other by being given a problem space, forming teams, and running through the entire design process in 5 days. It's a crazy introduction, but it really allows you to see the full scope of what you'll be diving into throughout the rest of the year. This year's topic actually broke away from human-centered design to start asking questions about post-human design. And the students had interesting projects dealing with design for non-human actors. In the fall quarter, the elective that you, or the studio course that you take is Ideation Studio. It's a 10-week-long full design process with an emphasis on the early parts of the design thinking process, working through ideation, getting ideas, deciding how to narrow down concepts, eventually settling on a single topic and moving forward with that. And I'm sure Joan and Fontaine again can relate to this as they're in the final week of their projects right now, getting ready for presentations at the end of this week. This year's topic in Ideation Studio is the future of the home. And so they're looking at different elements surrounding the home as they've defined it. In the winter quarter, the studio course is Prototyping Studio. This is where you learn about physical design, pulling things from the screen to the physical world and back, learning how to interact with sensors and other things to bring the external into your design in a technical, in in technology. So the students will be working with a lot of kits like Arduino kits, sensors, building things and the like. Prototyping Studio is a lot of hands-on development of physical projects. Then the studio for spring quarter gets into capstone. We'll talk more about it during the capstone section, but it's research studio, conducting all of your research for your capstone project. That rolls into summer quarter where you're doing capstone studio itself, working full-time on your capstone project. So 5 studios over the course of the year. That's really the biggest course that you're taking each quarter. Next up in the curriculum list is the lecture series. And I think lectures might even be a misnomer for this. The lecture courses are really seminar courses. These are three different sessions that are focused less on making and projects and more on gaining the foundational knowledge you need to be a more advanced designer and researcher. So you'll be doing a lot of readings of the academic literature, learning about different methods, and really building up your knowledge of what's underneath all of this designing that we're doing. In the fall quarter, you take usability and user research course. This gives you an introduction to the various different methods of research. You're not going to go out and do a project right away with all of these methods, but you get a chance to understand the pros and cons of different types of research methods so that as you're working on your projects in studio class and the like, you have a chance to think back and say, which methods could I pull from user research class? The winter quarter lecture or seminar course is user interface software and technology. This is a seminar that focuses on how we understand interfaces and how you work with interfaces, what goes into the background in designing for them, and what works and doesn't work on different types of interfaces. Spring quarter's lecture course is called The Design of Integrated Systems. Excuse me. And it's kind of become a course that gives you a chance to step back. You're halfway through the program, and it asks some bigger questions about where we got our design ideas from, what other academic disciplines we're learning from, whether it's in the arts or in computer science or other areas, and asking why we're designing like we are, why we're using these methods that we're using. So it's a class that really functions around asking some bigger questions and being able to articulate responses to some of the challenges that we face as designers and researchers. So those 3 lecture courses kind of give you the academic and foundational understanding of the field that you can then apply in your studio classes. In addition, all 4 quarters you take Dub Seminar. Dub Seminar is where the design use build community at the University of Washington comes together. The Dub, again, is this group that's made up of people at the University of Washington, faculty, graduate students mostly, and some industry practitioners affiliated with the university. And we come together weekly for a speaker series. The speakers will talk about anything from industry topics to a lot of academic topics. They're usually something that you're not working on in a project today necessarily, but it gives you a chance to broaden your horizons, to hear what people who are working at the forefront of especially the academic side of the field are thinking about and what they're developing. In non-COVID times, like in this picture, we come together in a physical space, have lunch together once a week and listen to a speaker. It's a great chance to also have informal conversations with that broader Dub community and get to know each other. In COVID times now, this is all done online with a Zoom meeting. So a little, no food and a little less of that interaction happens around the edges. But the Dub Seminar really is a great chance to get exposed to a lot of interesting ideas that might stimulate some of the things that you're interested in working on down the road. And then finally comes Capstone. So Capstone is your summative project at the end of the year here. Our intention is that you'll work on projects throughout the year, but you'll really apply everything that you learn in your capstone project. And capstone begins already in a light form in winter quarter when you take a 1 credit course called Capstone Planning. So that's where you start putting together a sense of what you want to focus on for Capstone, what sorts of skills you want to work on within your project team, the types of topic areas that interest you and don't interest you. And you also take some time to get introduced to the industry advisors and start thinking about which ones you'd like to work with. So capstone planning happens in winter quarter. Then in the spring quarter, your team has been formed and you launch into your research for your capstone project. You still don't know what the final design solution is going to be, but you spend all of spring quarter really working through and becoming experts in the area that you're going to be focused on through secondary and primary research, and really refining your concept and coming up to speed on all different elements of it, so that once summer quarter rolls around, where you're entirely focused on capstone, you can dive in and really work as a team to develop an interesting solution to whichever area that you're focused on, in collaboration again with an industry sponsor. The screenshot on this slide, you can go to our website and watch capstone presentations from every cohort previously. You can go through and see what projects come out of the program and get a sense for the kinds of things that you might design if you were in the program. So all that fits together to form the curriculum for the year. Again, you've got your lecture series for 3 quarters, you got 5 studios, 2 of which are part of capstone, and you've got 4 quarters of dub seminar. And that's 39 of your 46 required credits. In addition to that, there are electives that you can take. So you need 7 credits worth of electives over the course of the year. Credits are different at every different school. So what that works out to are roughly 2 out of the 4 quarters you'll be taking an elective. Some people take 3 quarters of electives. Some people take 2 quarters. 2 to 3 courses is normal. These are mostly courses taught in our sponsoring departments, those 4 departments that we mentioned at the beginning. But you can take courses from any unit at the University of Washington, as long as it's a graduate level course and you can make a case for why it's related to your course of study. Last quarter, we had a student who took a course in the business school. She had a good case for why that made sense in her degree. It wasn't one of our sponsoring departments, but she was able to get space in that course and it counts towards graduate credit for her. So anything at a graduate level can work for your academic or for your elective credits. The theory for using electives that we usually recommend are to think of either finding an elective that'll fill a gap in your skill set. So if you come in with a lot of research background, but you don't have much visual design background, you might want to take a visual design course. Or vice versa, if you're coming in as a visual designer and not much in the background of research. You also might want to use electives to dive deeper into an area that you already have familiarity with. You might want to kind of build up your strength somewhere so that you can make a case for that as your special skill when you go forward. And then finally, a lot of times people take electives to get another project for their portfolio. So they look to electives in search of courses that are going to give them another quarter-long project that they might build into a portfolio piece. So that's the curriculum. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about careers and how we prepare you for finding careers at the other side of the program. And we do quite a bit throughout the year to work with you on your career development. There are a few different levels that we work with you in career development. First off are things that we provide within the program itself. So in MHCID program, we really honestly believe that you as a graduate student are here to learn first and foremost. We know that you're going out to the world, you're getting this degree with a plan of going and working in industry, but we think that the best career development that you can do is really to gain the most knowledge from the year here and really dive into the academics. So I think starting with prioritizing the coursework and the projects that you're working on is really important as a foundation to allow you to be an even stronger candidate on the job market. Nevertheless, beyond that, we do provide a lot of career development work. So throughout the year, I hold a series of brown bag sessions that are designed around introducing and practicing the different elements of the job search process. We'll have sessions on resume building, on networking. We have multiple sessions throughout the spring and summer on the different pieces of the interviewing process that some of you are really familiar with, no doubt, and for others of you, it'd be a new thing. So behavioral interview and phone screen questions, we practice those quite a bit. And then there's things like the take-home design exam, or design assignment, and whiteboarding challenges, where you're given a problem on the spot and you have to you have to solve it in front of everybody on the spot. We talk about portfolio presentations in the interview. All of those things are handled in the brown bag sessions that we run throughout the year. That goes all the way through to even courses on negotiating your salary once you're at the stage of having a job offer. Beyond that, we bring in alumni quite a bit throughout the program. You'll see Jacob and Yammer here coming in for this, but our alumni are one of our biggest strengths when it comes to what we offer for career development. Because of the cohort model and because of the small group that works together, alumni come out of the program really willing to be generous with their time and give back. So we have an alumni mentoring program where each student is typically matched up with 2 alum that they can have ongoing conversations with throughout the year. This gives you a chance to talk to someone with whatever problems are on your mind at the moment. It's really easy to reach out to alum and set up a one-off informational interview at any point, but the alumni mentoring program gives you a chance to continue meeting with the same people so you don't have to explain your initial story over and over again to them. We also hold alumni panels where we bring back alum with different areas that they're working in and give them a chance to talk about what life is like on the other side, whether it's at a design agency or a panel on doing research in industry or working at big tech. Those can be really helpful for helping to demystify the world beyond the academic program. In the spring quarter, we have a dedicated portfolio class. A design director from one of the city's best design agencies comes in and teaches a course that you don't have to take, but almost everybody takes because it's a really awesome chance to dedicate some time to understanding what the purpose is of your portfolio and to work through some of the stories that you want to tell in your portfolio. Often, I think one of the misperceptions about portfolios is that your website portfolio is the way that you get a job. And actually, it is a really helpful part of your job search materials, but the way that you tell the story of your portfolio in interviews is probably even more important. So practicing the storytelling for the portfolio presentation is a really essential part of that portfolio class. In the summer, we have a career conference where we bring in industry professionals to give you a chance practicing your interview process with real life hiring managers and recruiters from a number of different companies. That gives you a chance to, say, do a whiteboard challenge in front of somebody from industry and immediately receive feedback. So all of that builds together. And then in addition to that, one-on-one meetings are probably the last big piece of career development within the program. We have a series of workshops, we have the portfolio class, but not everybody moves at the same pace. So you can set up time to talk about whatever you're particularly working on with just one-on-one meetings with myself or with the instructors along the way. And that could be a really important way, once you're especially in the thick of the job search, to get advice that you need throughout the program and actually beyond. We do a lot of work with alumni. You never really get out of the program after you graduate. You can always come back for advice down the road. Last week, I was working with a couple of alum on negotiating their salary increase as they were getting promotions. So all of that is part of the resources we provide for career development. Beyond the program itself, there are advantages to being at a big university like the University of Washington. At the University of Washington, there are a lot of places that can be helpful in your job search. Of course, with a big state institution like this, there's a career center that runs workshops literally every day. They're mostly geared towards undergrads, but they also have graduate focused sessions. And sometimes even going to the undergrad sessions can be useful. If you're ready to work on a resume and I'm not teaching resume yet, maybe you want to go to the career center and see what they have to offer. They also bring in industry professionals or industries, company reps to talk about hiring at different companies. Those can be useful to go to. And they run large career fairs. The large career fairs are not generally the way that most of our students find their jobs. Um, those large career fairs are really geared towards having really brief conversations with recruiters. Maybe you could use them to follow up later, but they're available if you want to gain access to some companies that we don't have in our own network here. And I think DUB, this design use build community, is also a great resource that comes out of the University of Washington beyond the confines of our own studio space. So all of that comes together to say the UW as an institution is a valuable piece of your career development. And then finally, being in Seattle has a lot of advantages. So Seattle is a great place to be studying and preparing for a career in this field. We're a tech hub. Other than the San Francisco Bay Area, there's really nowhere better to be studying user experience design or user research than Seattle. Obviously Amazon and Microsoft have their headquarters here. In addition, you have a large presence from Google, Facebook. Apple is not as strong in Seattle, but is building its campus here. And a lot of other companies are located in Seattle. What that means from a student perspective is that there are a lot of people in Seattle who speak your language, who are interested in the same things that you're interested in. So you don't have to wait until after you're done in a program to go somewhere distant to find people interested in the same topics. Instead, here in Seattle, again, once we're out of COVID days, there are meetups at companies and design agencies throughout the year that you can go and get to know people in the field who are doing the things that you want to be doing a few years down the line. It's a lot easier being in Seattle to access a lot of those places and to, go visit Microsoft's campus because there's a talk or there's a center that you've arranged to visit, or go stop in at one of the design agencies. The physical location is very important. Obviously, in this COVID day and age, there's not much happening in person. So a lot of these things have moved online, and that takes that physical necessity to be here at the moment out of the picture. But hopefully that'll be back before too long. All right, so I've talked for a long time, and I think what would be good now would be to spend some time to talk to our student reps and see about the student experience here. So again, our panel today has 2 alumni and 2 current students. Jacob and Yammer are from the previous class that graduated this past August, and Joan and Fontaine are in week 9 or week 10 of their first quarter here. So I think as a starting point, why don't we go around and have each of you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose MHCID when you were thinking about a graduate program. What brought you to this program in particular? And just looking at the order of people on the screen, we'll start with Jacob.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Jacob. Thanks for the introduction, Matt. Yes, like Matt said, I just graduated this last August. I was from cohort 7. And yes, I'm a UX designer. And yeah, why I chose the program. So there's a few reasons. The first reason why I chose the program was because MHCI plus D is like very much focused on design, which I was looking for. Like there's some other programs that focus more on like other parts of the industry, or such as like more focused on research and whatnot. And we're like, wow, this program like has a lot of research focused classes and you learn every part of the design process. I feel it was very, very much like focused on design and doing design and applying those principles into like the industry and how it works to like, I guess, in like the quote unquote real world. And then another big like really attractive factor to me was like the studio based / like tight knit cohort. So like a lot of other masters are like 200 people or like 100 plus people, but this cohort, which is like only about 40 people, really over that year, I really got to get to know my classmates, and I made some lifelong friends during this process, and people I still talk to today, even though we graduated 3 months ago. Oh yeah, someone asked, talk about your own background. So yeah, I forgot to introduce that. So before MHCI plus D, I actually was also a UW student, and I graduated from informatics with a focus in HCI. So I was one of the students in the program that came into the program. I was one of the students in the program that came into the program with some design experience, because quite a few of my classmates didn't have like too much. They came from like different diverse backgrounds, which is like my next point. Is the beauty of the tight knit cohort is I really got to expand my breadth of skills by working with like a lot of my diverse classmates, because so many of them came from like psychology or industrial design or like art history or architecture or computer science, and of course like also UX design. So I gained this like depth, this breadth of skills of like all these other disciplines, while marrying it with like the depth of skills of UX and design I learned like through the program. And then yeah, lastly, like what Matt also just mentioned, which is like it was in Seattle, and I think Seattle's like a great city in general to live in. It's like really nice here, and it's a great city for tech. Like Matt was saying, like a lot of my classmates and I have, since we're in the program, we're fortunate enough to like go to Microsoft campus together, or like go to like a meetup at Google in Fremont, and just like go to talks and whatnot, or go to women in UX meetups, and just having like that tight knitness married to like the tech city that is Seattle. There's like a lot of great experience that came from outside the classroom too. So that was a little bit of a rambling spiel, so I'm just gonna pass it off to
That was awesome. Thank you, Jake. No, that was really good. Yammer.
Hi everyone. Oh, sorry.
Go
Okay.
for it.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Yamur. I come from a psychology background before. I graduated last with Jacob in August from MHCID. My background is in psychology, and I also worked in a little bit of like healthcare consultancy kind of a thing. My transition to UX design was very like sudden and unexpected, that I didn't know much about it before. I was just very interested in. And why I chose this program is because it is 1 year, and I'm an international student. I wanted to get a 1 year UX degree without like, so I could start working right away and get my STEM OPT. But this program specifically has a holistic, strong curriculum that covers like research, from research till design. So that's something that I couldn't find in many other programs as well that are also 1 year. But as Jacob said, it's also a studio based, which is a very specific quality to have that many programs don't have. That, as he said, it is a very collaborative environment, very personalized, and it just was very strong, which is why I came to this program. And I am currently working as a UX researcher at a design agency in New York. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Yammer. Joan, how you doing?
Good. Lots of questions. I love it. It's great. My fingers are getting twitchy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for covering them.
Oh yeah, of course. So I have an undergraduate degree in fine arts, and I graduated in 2006. So it's quite a while ago. I'm not sure that counts anymore. Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But after that, I got into graphic design. And it was kind of weird for me because I was the one that was always asking questions. And, as a graphic designer, you're like at the end of the design pool. So when you ask questions and the product is already made, people get kind of mad. So I went over to front end development thinking that I would have more control over the situation, so that when I did ask questions, I could fix it. And then whenever you do front end development, they always want you to do like UI, UX, and have that as one of your lines in your resume. So I went ahead and got a certificate in that. And I realized that's what I should be doing instead of front end development, because I didn't really like coding all that much. I wanted to do more of the design and the ideation. So then I wanted to get more into it. So I TA'd for the certification that I got, and that was a lot of fun. And then I And at that point, I was like, okay, I need to get more into this. So I applied to this program. And then after I applied, I volunteered as a UX designer in addition to TAing. And that was a lot of fun. And I got a little bit more experience before I started class in the fall. So I think MHCI plus D was my top school. I had found it about like 2 years before I applied, and I had finally gotten enough bravery to actually do it, like after I did the certification. So I'm sure I could have applied earlier, but I just was feeling kind of scared. So my advice to you is just do it, just apply.
Awesome. Cool. Fontaine, you're number 4.
Hi everyone, I'm Fontaine. And if I repeat anything that anybody else said, I was looking at chat, so I can't quite remember what they said. I think they covered a lot of the reasons why I also chose MHCID, but my background in undergrad is in psychology. And after that, I spent about 8 or 9 years working in healthcare and clinical research, quality improvement, and then eventually in, I guess, sort of like service design and looking at how to integrate technology into various healthcare settings. And that's when I really got interested into taking the step forward to take this program. I had always been interested in design again, and I'll just echo what Joan just said, just do it, just apply. I thought for a very long time, and it took me a while to get there. And yeah, I did, and I'm so happy that I came here and chose this program because it's just been fantastic. And I think people mentioned the cohort model. I really enjoy. I love working with all the different diverse people and different backgrounds people come from. And in that sense, you get to learn a lot of different skills and also be really impressed by who you're working with, because we all have different skill sets that we're pulling from. And it's really fun just working together and figuring out how all of those fit together. And yeah, and I think another reason, again, they said like Seattle is such a great area to be for this sort of work. And for me, also, there were some other factors such as the length of the program and the structure of it. I had also considered HCD, but I liked that these classes were during the day and I could finish the program within a year and get back working, because that's important to me at this point in my life. Yeah, and I think that's it. Oh, and one other thing, I guess, is when I got the staff is really great. They're super responsive. And that's another thing that I was really impressed about when I was deciding, is how connected I felt to the program in general. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to really quickly +1 the staff too, because since it's a small program of only 40 people, they really are there for you all year, and like they're full attention, and I've never like had to wait or like get a meeting canceled, and they're really there to make your experience the best possible and really help you in every aspects during the program and after you graduate as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all. So I'm wondering, we've talked a little about your background and why you decided to come to the program. What was it like here from the student perspective? So we got 2 different cohorts. The one that just graduated, we call it cohort 7 or C7, and the current students in C8. You had kind of different experiences because of COVID. C7, you were able to be in person for half of the year and then moved remote. Cohort 8, you're starting out all remote. But what's the day-to-day experience like? Is it a walk in the park? Are you busy? Tell me about the day-to-day experience. And we don't have to go in order or anything.
I can just go real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, so my experience is obviously very clearly broken up to 2 parts, which is the first 6 months was pre-pandemic, and then the second 6 months was post-pandemic. So I'll mainly talk about the first 6 months, where I'll just wake up early because class is normally in the morning, and I would go to class. And yeah, since everyone's really comfortable with each other very quickly, since it's like a small cohort, it's very easy to participate in class and just pay attention and talk to professors and mingle with the professors. And then after class, I normally do activities with my classmates, like I'll go eat lunch, or we'll just talk about each other's projects or give each other's feedback. And then I would always stay in the studio for a long time, for majority of the day, to like work on my projects with my classmates. And this type of actual like normal day now that I graduated is like was very invaluable to me. And like I look back on it very fondly where like I learned a lot, and it was really nice to be in this environment with like 40 other designers who are all like very passionate and about our discipline, and are there for the same reasons to work really hard and like get a lot out of the program. And in terms of workload, this is actually something I liked about the program is how rigorous it was and how much time it took, and just having like that year to just be really involved into this program and with design is something I really enjoyed. And does take up a lot of time, but to me that was like a plus, and I know it was for a lot of my classmates.
Awesome. Thanks.
I think the day-to-day will be very busy. You will be working almost 24/7 in the studio, which sounds scary at first, but it was it was such a blessing that I miss it so much, because you build great friendships as well as you learn a lot from each other. For example, we had so many classes, like it is a full-time program, so you'll be very busy with so many classes and so many projects at once, but you will hold different roles in different projects, learning from your teammates, as well as, for example, in our cohort, we had some things like Skillshare that like some classmate would go on the board and share how they use Figma, for example, with everyone else, and we would ask questions. So that also was like that relationship you built with each other in the studio helps you learn from each other a lot too. So I think in-person experience was very invaluable. Online experience was great as well, but I hope you will be in person, so you'll get the full experience of being in the studio, working hands-on on projects, because that's something that I'm having struggle with even in the industry working for a project. So
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Are we going in order?
We seem to be. So go, Joe.
Okay, I guess I'm next in
What's
that
the
case.
day-to-day like? Have you slept recently?
The day-to-day for me, oh my goodness. I don't know if any of you guys wants to hear this. I wake up at 5:30 to get my workout in so I can stay sane. And then I start working at 8 o'clock, and I continue working and having meetings almost all day until about like meetings and classes all day until about 9 o'clock at night. But I think I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I don't think everybody does this. And I also have my student job, which is student admissions ambassador. So that takes up a little bit of time too. And I'm doing some networking too. And I like go to these like online webinars about UX too. So I'm doing class in addition to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think this program is like a gas, right? It just expands to like fill up your time. And there's so many resources, right? When you go to class, they're like, oh, and if you want more information, you can dig into the rabbit hole here, and here's a rabbit hole, and here's another rabbit hole. And if you have time, you can look into those. And I think I have time. So I'm like, oh, what's in this one? Let me take a look. And then like 3 hours later, oh no, it's 10 o'clock. I should be asleep by now. So that's my life. Lots and lots and lots of opportunities. Like there's so many opportunities. Like you won't know where to get all the time. So it's been exciting so far.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'll just, I guess, add some stuff on top of that. Just day-to-day classes, very, very collaborative, a ton of group work. Yeah, like almost, well, not all assignments, but a large chunk, I'd say the majority of big projects at least are group assignments. So you do have to, like, if you hate group assignments, this would not be the right place to be. But it's fun. That's part of the fun is getting to know people in your program and working with everybody, and then also getting to know the staff and teachers and everybody, and just learning from everybody, because I guarantee you there are going to be so many skills this year that you go in feeling that you're just kind of like, what am I doing? How do I do this? How do I use this software? So it is also a lot of trying to pick these skills up and trying to have fun while you're doing it, not be too stressed at least. And just by the end of it, you just look back and think like, oh, that's so cool. I've learned all of these new things. But there is a level of self-motivation that you have to have in order to go out and learn some of these things, because it's not all during the class, right? So expect that. Other than that, yeah, just it's very supportive. I really like how everybody is so open to connecting and to learning, and everybody's very positive. And we do, like, we've been doing these show and tells also during our classes to kind of like see what people's lives are like outside of class, especially since we're doing virtual right now. It's been a bit like harder to connect, and it's just so positive, so supportive. Everything everybody shows, it's like you get all this, everybody's just cheering for everybody else basically with everything that we do. So that's been really nice. Yeah.
I was sitting in on show and tell this morning, and that was really awesome to just see someone's mixtapes and someone else's art studio background, and Kat and all those little pieces. So thanks a lot. Yeah. I think my last big question that I'd like to get your insights on is so you've all managed to make it through this application process. Overall, do you have any tips? You've already shared a lot, but tips for someone who's putting together their application. What would you recommend to the folks sitting here starting to work through and wondering what their best approach is?
Yeah, I can start. I don't know the actual like cheat code on what's actually like needed, but I can talk about like what worked for me and what I think you should talk about. And the things you should cover is first is your why you want to pursue design, and like what you want to do with design, and like why do you like want to do UX over like other disciplines. And then second, why the program will help you reach your goals with design. Like what is the program like through your research going to give you to help you reach like your specific goal with what you want to do with design, and what that goal is. And yeah, exactly, like what classes or like what part of the program is going to help you reach your goal. So I think both of those parts are important, and that's like what I talked about, which was like, yeah, my journey in design, and then what my goal in design was, and then how the program was going to help me reach that goal. Yeah.
Oh, and to add to what Jacob said, focus on your strengths. Like, how do your strengths get you there?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because I did come from a more design background, but like I mentioned earlier, so many of my classmates didn't come from design. They came from like computer science, art history, architecture, psychology, etc. So yes, very much so. Focus on your strengths.
In my experience, I didn't come from a like design or CS background. I don't know how to code still to this day. I come from psychology background, and I got in from the waitlist. So if you're in the waitlist, don't lose hope. But my point is that try to explain your design thinking, meaning why you want this program and how this program can help you achieve your goals, not just is it a stepping stone to UX, because you can get that from a boot camp too, but what this program will get you, like, and how will this program improve the way that you think about design, and you start questioning things. So I think that's what I focused. I don't know if I am a good resource to give advice since I got it from waitlist, but that's
You
my experience.
absolutely are. Total success story, Amr. Joan and Fontaine, any tips you want to throw out there? Joan, you've been giving great tips on Instagram too. For those of you who haven't followed us on Instagram, I would highly recommend it. Joan's been doing a series talking about the application process from the student perspective. You definitely want to get that view. It gives you a chance to hear something other than the sort of top-down staff view of everything. But anything you want to throw out here, Joan or Fontaine?
Oh yeah, we've got the whole Ask C8 series on Instagram. If you guys want more content, MHCI plus D content to listen to. Yeah, well, that's basically all of it. Like how, and then I think Matt says this a million times, like, how is MHCID perfect for you? And how are you perfect for MHCI plus D? Because this program is a very kind of different from the other ones. Like, we're a very intensive program. It's all group, like studio work. Like, do you like group studio work? Is that how you work best? Because if it's not, then that's probably not going to be good for you or anyone, right? I think Fontaine mentioned that. Yeah. So yeah, this is a very unique environment. So you really need to know a lot about the program in order to convey that on your admissions material. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think I would say to reflect about yourself as well and what your story is, what your goals are, where you want to be in the future, and to know yourself. And that really helps because when I mean, your application is also, it's a story of who you are and where you want to be as well, right? And it's like thinking about what narrative you want to portray and how that fits in with design thinking, how that fits in with this particular program. And we talk about that in class as well, as often as like this storytelling and narrative, and just thinking about how all these things add together, how all of your experiences add together. And I think when you actually, so there's a part in the application where you can add supplemental materials. So for a lot of people, this is some sort of portfolio. You don't have to have a portfolio. It can be other things as well. So don't worry if you don't have one. But if you do go that route and then look at that material that other people have posted. I know there's lots of links on the MHCI plus D website to various alumni. They have their websites listed on there. Looking at how people tell the story of sort of their work and what they've created. And then you can think about, you know, what your experiences have been and what your past projects have been, either in school or in work. And maybe just practice trying to tell the story of your work in that sort of way as well. I found that really helpful, at least. So
Awesome. Thank you all. Seriously, like, it's great to hear the perspectives and what you've been through in here, and also thank you for your many chat answers as we've gone along. I can imagine you're probably fielding a zillion questions over there in chat as well. But I appreciate it, and I think you've all had. I'd have corrected you if you all said anything that I thought was out of line or inaccurate. But all of these insights are really good. And you know, like Jacob said, there is no cheat code to get in. There's just a whole bunch of different routes to getting into the program, and making the strongest version of yourself is really the way to go. Not trying to like find the right way to make it into the program. I'll talk briefly a little bit about who we think is right for the program. And I think actually Fontaine led into this really nicely with a lot of what she said. But when looking at who we see when we're going through applications and admissions, we're looking for people who are curious and thoughtful about people and technology. Human-centered design is mostly focused on the technology sphere, so that makes sense. Find meaning and collaboration is what we're looking for. This is not a program that works well if you're just a solo practitioner. We think that design is inherently collaborative, and the best design comes out of working in teams. You'll have a lot on your plate, and you'll be working alone off and on throughout, breaking off from your team to take different side pieces. But collaborating in the team atmosphere is at the heart of the program, and most of your projects are going to be collaborative. So if you like to work alone, not necessarily the right place to be doing that. In addition, it really helps to be self-directed and driven. A graduate program really will be what you make of it in a lot of ways. And like Joan mentioned, there are rabbit holes that you can get sucked down of interesting material everywhere. And part of your job as a graduate student is to be curious, to be interested, and to push yourself in the directions that you need to go. We won't always be handing you everything. You'll also ideally be pushing yourself to find the things that you need. We look for people who have an impulse towards creation, looking to find solutions and to look for ways to approach problems, maybe not solving things, but finding the way towards making technology function better in the world. And the creative process is a piece of that. Bringing this methodology together with creativity makes for great design, we think. We're looking for people who can dedicate a full year in time and finances. So this is an intense program. The advantage of that is you really are focused for the year. You're here to learn and you're here to be part of this program. And we're looking for people who are going to be here and be present throughout the year. And it is just 1 year long, but it is an expensive program. So it's important to mention, a ability to dedicate a year of finances where you're not working full time on the side. If you need to work full time while getting your graduate degree, there are programs like HCDE that could allow that. But this program is for folks who are ready to just go to the next level by dedicating the year towards this. And then eager to work in the cohort and studio models. Hopefully that's clear by now what we mean by those. But this is definitely a program for people who find value in going together with a cohort through the entire experience and being together in a studio style where making and critiquing each other's work is at the heart of what we do. Want to talk a little bit about the application pieces themselves, and then we'll go to Q&A as well. So big picture, applications are due on January 15th. Hopefully everybody knows that already. You need to get your application in by the 15th. There's no advantage to applying early. We don't start looking at things until after the 15th. So get it in by the 15th, but don't rush to get it in earlier. There's no rolling admissions or anything like that. After January 15th, 2 months later, March 15th, is our target for getting you offers of admission and waitlist offers. So you wait 2 months and then you get word about the middle of March on whether or not you have an offer or a waitlist offer. If you receive an offer, then April 15th is your next big date. April 15th is when you have to make a decision, accept the offer and put a deposit down if you're going to come here. And then April 15th is when we start rolling out waitlist offers if there's any additional space left in the program. So the 15ths are your dates to have in mind as you go into 2021 for the application. I don't talk too much about application materials in this webinar, just because we have a lot of information online where you can really go through these pieces and get some advice. And I would recommend spending some time on the website going through these. But what we require for the program are your transcripts for all work you've done at universities in degree granting programs. You need a 3.2 GPA from a 4-year accredited institution. There are different methods of calculating your 3.2 GPA. So be sure to read the website, because you can do that with your full GPA, the last 2 years of study, or your GPA in your major. Read the website for more details on that. You need 3 letters of recommendation. You turn in a resume or CV. That gives us a chance to have a clear view of work experience that you might have in addition to your academic work. So for some people, the resume is more important than the transcripts. For other people, you'll mostly be applying based on your transcripts. You'll do a personal statement and supplementary materials. Those are the 2 that you really want to put most of your time into. So your personal statement is where you put together your entire argument about, like Joan said, that I find myself repeating over and over again, why this program is the right program for you. So what is it that draws you here? And then what you're going to give to the cohort. So why you're right for the program. We're not looking for people who know it all already. We think it's a much better program when we bring together people with different types of skills. So given that, you have to tell us how this fits into your overall trajectory and what you're going to bring to the cohort. Supplementary materials, there's information on the website about different ways of approaching this. It's not required, but I'd strongly recommend it. Even if you're not from a designer background and you don't have a portfolio ready, take a look at what we say about supplementary materials and use that if you can. It's a chance for us to get some insight into how you do your work, even in a non-design context. It gives you a chance to show yourself at your best in some projects that you've worked on or case studies describing work that you've done. And then obviously there's an application fee too. So those are the application materials. International applicants, in addition to this, you need to demonstrate your English language proficiency. This usually means something like having a degree from an English speaking institution. Check the specifics on the website for how that's implemented, or taking the TOEFL. The straight up TOEFL scores are generally 106 total and 26 minimum in speaking. This year, especially because of COVID, the university has implemented a lot of alternate methods for satisfying the English language requirements. So again, check the website, look at all the different options there to see which one you can use to demonstrate your English language proficiency. I mentioned here that you need to graduate from a 4-year program in an accredited school. There are a lot of 3-year bachelor degrees internationally, and alone a 3-year bachelor's is not sufficient to be eligible for a graduate program at the University of Washington. So you need a 4-year program. You could do a 3-year program plus an additional graduate degree or a postgraduate diploma, but a 3-year bachelor's alone is not sufficient. And then of course you'll have to convert your GPA from whatever scoring system you used into a 4-point scale so that we can understand how those grades compare. And we have some tools, some calculators you can use linked to on our website. That's all that we have prepared today. The rest of the time I'd like to spend on Q&A. And what we'll do is we'll look at your chat questions. I think if some of the students, if you've been watching those questions and you've seen any come up that you think I should particularly focus on, we can all take a hand at these and kind of go through them. But I'll start at the most recent ones that have come in and then kind of scroll up, unless you've noticed any urgent ones from earlier.
I think there was like one urgent one that I discovered. It was for you that said, that came from Amaya. It said, the recommendations on the website says about your capacity to undertake graduate studies. And Amaya asked if I'm years out of school and will be asking for professional letter of recommendation from a supervisor. What kind of detail or example would be helpful to share?
Actually, that's a really good question. So we, for your recommendation letters, we don't have a requirement that they have to be academic. They can be academic or professional, and use the combination that can provide your strongest insights into who you are and how you perform the work that you do. If you've been out of school for a while, probably 3 supervisors is a smarter move. You want people who can write strong recommendations and who really know you. So, if you have a fancy professor with, great notoriety, but you took a course with a couple hundred people in it and they don't really know you, they'll report how you did, but they aren't going to give us much insight, and we can see through those recs pretty clearly. So people who know you, the combination is yours to make. You just want strong recommenders from either supervisors or instructors usually. Somebody asked if it's a STEM major, and I see the answer has already come through. Yes. So for international students, this is a STEM eligible program, which means you get 3 years of OPT before you need to convert to an H-1B. That's a great advantage of the program. Yeah.
Someone asked about interviews in the application process, Matt.
Yeah, we do very few interviews, so you shouldn't expect to have an interview. There's once in a while we'll have a few interviews, but it's typically not a part of the process. If we do want to do an interview, we'll send you out an email about it. But it's a very rare part of the process, so don't expect an interview.
Sorry, I'm reading the early questions that came to
thank
you. Someone asked how many students in each cohort directly come from undergrad without industry experience?
Yeah, so typically it's around a 25 to 30% is the usual number. We don't have quotas for it. The largest group of students in the cohort typically have 2 to 5 years of work experience. That's usually a bit over half of the cohort. And then direct from undergrad is a quarter to maybe up to a third. When you're coming directly from undergraduate, you're making a case for why another year of study is the right thing for you. Are you just stuck in being a student forever? Or do you have an actual strong argument for why you need this additional degree to get you to where you're planning on going?
There were a couple of questions about this. One person asked if they've taken like an elective that also is one of the elective options for MHCID. Can they count it? And as a follow-up, somebody else asked, I see that MHCID accept GNM. Can someone tell me more about this? I understand it means you can take some classes before applying, but how do I sign up for it?
Yeah, so good questions again. So GNM is graduate non-matriculated status. And it's kind of annoying that it has to show up on our application portal. You shouldn't select that. The only way that we use that is if you've already been accepted and you're coming to the program, there is an opportunity that in the summer quarter before you start, if you wanted to enroll in one of the elective classes over the summer beforehand, that would be an option. And for that, we use that GNM status. If you're at the only courses we accept for transfer credit potentially would be from the University of Washington. So if it's literally an elective that we offer to our students here, those you might be able to transfer if you haven't used it towards another degree. So certificate programs sometimes have been able to transfer. It's a pretty limited amount, and you're only ever going to be able to get transfer credits towards the elective portion. The core curriculum is non-negotiable. You're in for that whole curriculum.
Do you want me to read the questions?
Yeah, you're
The
doing
rest
this
of
is
them?
great. Thank
Okay,
you.
someone asked if there's a page limit to a resume CV.
There isn't, but with anything that you're submitting, you should always think about the attention span of the reader. And so if your resume or CV goes on and on, you're probably not going to get people reading pages 3, 4, 5, how it goes beyond there. In industry, unless you've got a lot of work experience, one page is the norm. Being able to be concise is a design skill. And so aim for a page, but we won't ding you if you go longer. You may need to go longer, and just the further you go, the less attention people will be paying to it. So take that with a grain of salt there.
Next is, can you go into more detail about the curriculum differences between HCDE and MHCID?
Yeah, so HCDE program, which is another related degree here at the University of Washington, you should know that a lot of people apply to both programs. That's okay. We don't have any insight into who's applied to the other program. It won't count against you on either side. So there's a lot of overlap in people that apply to both. The curriculum at HCDE is a lot less structured. About half of the credits that you get for graduation are in required courses, and half are in electives that you choose throughout the time. Because you're going part-time in that program for most people, or even if you're going full-time, you're mostly taking courses in the evening in HCDE. The curriculum is less structured in that you don't walk through all of these same pieces like we've got ours structured, but you cover a lot of similar area. So it's not a studio model, and it's not this intense full-time group of people coming together, but you will study human-computer interaction. You'll study a lot of research methods, and you'll do projects using design thinking approach. So a lot of the topics are the same. It's just not that group of people together fully immersed in the subject area.
Okay, I think I'm also catching up. Some people ask about international student situation, like will they still get 3-year OPT visa? Will they still be able to apply for US jobs if it becomes online next year still?
Yeah, and actually, yeah, I wanted to talk about the online versus in-person piece of the puzzle. Obviously, we'd love to know when we're going to be back in person. The thing I can assure you is our intention is to be back in person as soon as it's safe, whether that's partially first, without everybody together, and just partial use of the studio. But we believe that this program will be back in person, hopefully by next fall. But we can't promise that because we don't run the course of the COVID world. So we intend to be an in-person program. We don't intend to transform into an online degree because we see a lot of value in that physical presence of being together. For international students, if you're able to get here, which is the big if, right now it's difficult to travel and get into the country. If you're able to get into the country, then yes, you maintain all of the status. In order to get OPT and work eligibility, you need to be physically present for 3/4, which counts as an academic year. If you do that, you have all of the OPT STEM eligibility. We're working with the current international students, a couple of whom are still not in country, and we've worked out solutions so that they'll be able to maintain their OPT status without a problem. But getting here, you're required to be physically in the United States in order to earn that work eligibility in the United States. So not necessarily all 4/4, but at least 3/4.
The next question is, what are the preferred formats for portfolio?
We'll work with you on that. So what we ask you for in the application is to give us 1 page in a PDF that includes a URL to a website. If you've got a portfolio, you just send us to that. If you don't have a portfolio or a website, you can send us to a Google folder, a shared folder, a Dropbox folder, where you can just point us somewhere where we can access the materials. And we'll work with whatever you have there. We've had people send us to GitHub sites where they're showing their coding projects, or take us to a Dropbox folder where then we're opening up PDFs of each project. We're flexible on how you present materials. In the application itself, just a URL that'll point us elsewhere.
The next is, how does the 4-year requirement work with students in a 4-year program who graduates in 3 years? And we also had another person saying that they graduated from a 3-year degree. How would that work?
So to get the specific rulings, I would recommend emailing me. And I see that Joan put in my email address, which is great. It's mhcid@uw.edu. So if it's a 4-year degree that you worked fast and finished in 3 years, that can be countable as a 4-year degree. If it's a 3-year degree that's designed as a 3-year degree, then you'll need to do supplementary work, supplemental study most of the time. So I'd recommend emailing to me, explaining your situation, and I can help you understand how it shakes out in your particular case.
Okay, that's the max I could catch up. I'm leaving the rest to you. I think there's some more. Are there electives that are industry focused? Which
Awesome. Thank you much for that. So I'm starting at the other end, and I see, will the class number for new students be influenced due to the defer previous students? The cohort size is still going to be in that 30 to 40 range. It'll be made up of some of the deferred students and some of the new admits. We honestly don't know how many of the deferred students will ultimately choose to come. When we find that out, that'll be how we choose how many new admit offers to make. So the cohort size will stay the same though. Yeah, questions about programming. You shouldn't be averse to learning some programming, but like Yamir said, you don't need to have coding experience before you start in the program. You're going to eventually want to develop some skills just because you're likely going to be talking to a lot of developers in your work. And so the better you can explain your design ideas and the work that you've done to people who think with that mindset of developers, coders, the better you'll be able to get across your ideas. So it's helpful, but it's not required.
I think we have a question that says, can you tell us the number of students deferred last year?
We don't openly share that number, and it really is going to vary a lot. We haven't checked with them to see how many life situations have changed. So we're leaving that number a little opaque because there's a lot of variability in there. The way I think about it is it's already a very selective application process. So it's going to be a little more selective if a lot of the defers come through and decide to come, but you're already dealing with a pretty selective application process. And if you were planning on applying in a normal year, you'd already have to do an awesome job. So still apply. If this is the right year, you should still be applying.
And the last one is, are portfolios typically diverse? What if you include multiple disciplinaries in a portfolio?
Absolutely. They can, you want to show yourself off with your strengths. So I think a dead end that some people go down, or a dangerous process that some people go down, is they think they have to prepare a UX portfolio, even though that's not their background. And so sometimes we'll see someone who has a really cool background and they apply, and maybe they took a boot camp or an online course, and they give us an app redesign as their portfolio piece. That shows kind of your interest in the field and how you study that, but it's probably not the strongest background that you could present on yourself. So a diverse portfolio that shows various different interests that you bring to the program could be really awesome. Show us your strengths, and don't worry about showing us what you think a UX design portfolio looks like, unless that's the background that you're coming in with. Like, I would imagine Jacob's background with informatics probably led him to show some really awesome design pieces, and probably had a pretty good portfolio to begin with. Yammer, coming in with a background in research, I'm guessing she didn't have UX design pieces in what she presented. Nope.
That is correct.
Yeah, just to add on that real quick is, yeah, like I said, like my cohort, or Yamura and I's cohort, was very diverse. So like a lot of students they came from like industrial design, they'll just put some of their work from there, or like people who are more come from artist background would just have some of their drawings, or not drawings, like arts and whatnot. And any type of work you have is great, and to show. And I do say this is like, one of my classmates got in without even having a portfolio too. So don't let not having one stop you from applying.
Yeah, it's strongly recommended, but it is not required. And every year there are successful students in the program who apply without using that supplementary work material. I don't have exact numbers, but I think it's about 80% of applicants do submit something. So, most people do it. It's helpful. If you think about, otherwise you're riding just on a brilliant statement of purpose as the main way that you're getting in. So take advantage of supplementary materials if you can, but it isn't required.
We had one question, I can't find it now, about the PhD or like publishing research path after the program, or if everyone goes to the industry after.
So we're designed to be a professional degree. We're training you to go into industry to work. And that's the mindset of the work that you're doing in here. It's a very different type of study than you would do in a PhD program. Academic life is about the creation of new knowledge. We're about utilizing knowledge in an applied perspective towards projects in the real world. Students in the program have graduated, and there are a handful who later decide, you know what, academics was where I was meant to be. And so a few alum have gone back to do PhDs, but I wouldn't treat this as a stepping stone into a PhD program. If you know PhD is where you want to go and the academic life is what's right for you, apply directly to a PhD program. This won't help you necessarily in moving towards a PhD program. If you're ambivalent and you think that might be a future for you, but you're also interested in industry, then this could be a good program. In the field of HCI, there's a lot less of a silo separating academics and industry. So people do go back and forth between the two, a lot more than in some other fields. So it's not like once you go down the industry path, you can never go to the academy, or vice versa. It's a good porous boundary between academic and industry in this field. But we're very much focused on applied knowledge instead of the creation of knowledge. And that's a distinction that's really important to think about as you're talking about what's motivating you to come here. Somebody asked if it's acceptable to include papers with multiple authors in your portfolio. Absolutely. That's kind of all that we do here are projects that are collaborative. And what I would do if you have those kind of papers, if you're working in a lab and you're a co-author on a paper, maybe you want to give a little bit of an introduction and say, here's a paper I worked on. My role was mostly this piece of it. This paper will discuss blah, 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 and then the link to the full paper. That way you can set the frame for how this paper shows the kind of work that you've done. And yeah, papers where you're a co-author, projects that you're part of a team, that shows that you're working collaboratively, which is what we're all about.
Can I just answer one question that came from Jim, that I used one of my projects from this healthcare consultancy that I was working on and my account management project actually, which was a different job, in a presentation format. I put them all in PowerPoint explaining how I got there, what's the problem space, how was my thinking approaching the problem, and how I tried to solve it, even if it wasn't solved at the end, which is not important. So that's what I showed in my portfolio supplementary material, which wasn't an exact website or a portfolio at all. It's something that I look at and kind of like look at different perspective now about what portfolio means, but that's enough to start. You don't have to create a full website.
The thing I really like about that example, Yammer, is there is a difference between sort of the portfolio for a job search versus a portfolio for an academic program, where you talked about the project that you worked on and what you were trying to do. If you were putting that in a job application, you'd be telling us how successful you were. You're coming to a program like this to learn something. So it's okay to be self-aware and talk in your projects about, I was trying to do this, or I think this shows the following, but maybe not these things. That kind of self-awareness can really show that your need for a program like this, or how that will fit in. So that's a really good example of how, you might use a project that shows some elements and discuss that, and be a little more open about the limitations that you're showing, because after all, you're coming here to learn something.
Yeah, and in my portfolio piece, I didn't show any design because I didn't do any design. I only showed how I did research. So that could also be an example.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's probably wiser than like attempting to fake it on the design side, because then you'll be measured up against people who maybe were working as UX designers or visual designers, and you probably aren't going to measure up to someone who's a graphic designer in their current life. So
Definitely
probably a good move to show your strengths. There are still a lot of questions coming in. I want to be conscious of the time. In a lot of cases, if you have specific questions, email me, mhcid@uw.edu. I'm happy to answer specific questions along the way. I do see a question about GPA in there that can be valid or useful for a lot of people, I think. 3.2 is our expected GPA. If you're close to 3.2 using one of those methods, we do tend to show some flexibility on that hard cutoff. We don't like hard cutoffs in general. If you're well below a 3.2, it's going to be hard to get an offer of admission. But if you're close to it, there's usually some wiggle room in there to look at the overall application. So again, that could be a good question to follow up with me on. Otherwise, I think I'm going to take us to our final slide and say, like, thank you all for coming in. Additional questions that you didn't get answered, just shoot me an email. I'll work with you. Happy to answer anything on case-by-case basis. Things I would recommend. First off, I want to really thank Yammer, Jacob, Joan, and Fontaine for all their help with the webinar today and all their insights. I think it can be really helpful to get some perspectives beyond just the program itself and see what it's like in the program. Beyond that, we really do put a lot of work into presenting a lot of material on our website. So take a look at application tips. There's a short video that I put together last year saying like top tips for various pieces of the application. Look at the capstone project videos. They're all up there from the first 7 cohorts. just get a feel for what it's like to be in the program and what you can expect to deliver at the other end of the year. And then again, email address mhcid@uw.edu for any of your particular questions along the way. And don't forget, January 15th, that's your deadline you're working towards. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot for sticking with us for the whole 90 minutes here. Good luck. Take care, all, and hope to talk to you or see you soon.
Bye, everyone. Good luck.
Good
Good luck,
luck,
everyone.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Bye, thank you.